There's a lot of decisions that we see small business owners make, especially startups make, that are in the should category. Well, I should do this and I should do that and I should do this. And they kind of should themselves before they're out of business.
We're your co-hosts, Vicky and Laura, and this is the Resilient Entrepreneurs Podcast, the ultimate guide for ambitious business founders and startups. Hear from business heroes who faced unexpected challenges as we unpack how they slayed their dragon and reignite your instinct to conquer your dragon.
So welcome to the Resilient Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today we have Melissa with us, and we're going to be talking all things finances for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, business people out there. And I'm excited for this conversation. And I said to Melissa just before we hit the record button that I may ask some personal questions or two in this episode, because like I'm sure a lot of listeners out there, I've struggled with finances and figuring it out. I'm an artist. I'm a creative. I don't want to do QuickBooks, even though I know I desperately have to. So anyway, I think we should have a really fun conversation about all things finances and hopefully help a whole lot of people get a little bit better with theirs. So Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited you're here.
I'm excited to be here. And yeah, like I said before we hit the record button, no topics are off limits. So ask away.
Okay. Right. Okay. We'll keep that in mind. I love it. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start about where did the bug of money accounting, where did that financial sort of, bug come from?
You know, you're not the first person to have asked me that question. I like to joke that I came from a long line of bookkeepers. My grandma worked in the bookkeeping department of a grocery store, and I remember hearing stories about that. And then she transferred over to a hospital, actually, and did bookkeeping for a hospital. She was one of the first single moms that she liked to proclaim that. She was the original single mom. So she worked, and it provided for her and my mom and my mom's siblings. And then my mom became a bookkeeper for a bank. And it's so different as a career now than it was then. You know, everything then was really all about the calculator tape, right? All about tallying everything up. And one of my oldest memories was laying under my mom's desk at the bank. And years later, of course, I come to kind of realize and find out it was because I was sick and she had to kind of keep me hidden so that the boss wouldn't, know I was there. But laying under her desk and the calculator tape just kind of magically coming over. And that really started it for me. They seemed so productive and so professional, and was always drawn to numbers. I loved math in school. I got lucky and ended up in an accounting class in high school, and it really, the bug caught me. And I believe that was my sophomore year in high school. I knew that was what I wanted to do. So went to school for that, and then, just started out as a lot of people who are my age did, and, an entry-level accounting position, and just worked my way up from there. To my last job in corporate America I was a controller for a manufacturing company, and then a series of events caused me to leave there and branch out on my own. So
now I'm curious.
Oh, it's a story too.
We love to know why, what, how entrepreneurs leap into this world of working for ourselves. So
2017, I was 40. I just turned 40. My husband took me on a cruise for my 40th birthday. And I hadn't taken a vacation. I hadn't taken any leave from work in probably 10 years. And they knew I was leaving. It wasn't like it was a surprise that I was going to be gone for 2 weeks. And we leave, we go on our vacation, and we're out. We went to Mexico, so we were out on the water for 3-4 days. You can't really check in very easily. So we hit land. We stop at a bar. We have, pina coladas. We're enjoying being on our tropical vacation. And I made the mistake of calling the office to check in. And my boss at the time had created kind of a mess. He had taken a whole bunch of money from our payroll tax account and used it to purchase some equipment. Now, he would do things like that, but I was always there right behind him to kind of fix it so that it was never an issue while I wasn't there. And it hit as a surprise. And, the state and the IRS don't really like it when payroll taxes can't be collected. So he started getting some nasty phone calls from government agencies. And of course, this became my fault. And fueled on pina coladas, I became indignant pretty quickly and I quit my job on the spot. Now, the other piece of that was my husband had just gone through nursing school and had literally just graduated probably 2 weeks before we left for the cruise. So we were a sole income household and I just quit. And he just, husband's sitting right there next to me and he looked at me and he's like, okay, we got this. What's the next phase look like, kind of a thing. So um, went home. We knew we had some time. We've always been really good at saving. So we knew we had a little bit of time. Went home. Kids went back to school, had an awesome month and a half with my boys. I decided, okay, I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to clear my head and I'm going to figure out what's next. And I did. I went for the run and I fell. I hit at full sprint. I hit a curb that was under some leaves and I shattered my jaw and
Oh my
pretty
gosh.
much every tooth in my mouth, and was, then I had 2 months where my jaw was wired. I had a broken wrist. I had all kinds of things, but it was just this glorious accident that really caused me to be still and to figure out this kind of perfect business and what it would look like, and to really, dream where I couldn't do anything else. And so we hit the 2 months. It was October. So 2 months after the accident, and cash was starting to get a little tight. I mean, we had gone with, no income or no additional income for probably about 5 months at that time. And gave myself 2 weeks to find my first client and just thought, if I don't, I'm going to throw the towel, and it wasn't meant to be. And the 11th hour, I had somebody reach out and they said, so this is what I'm looking for. And it was kind of this perfect scenario of exactly what I wanted and what I envisioned my dream client to be. And it turned into the firm that we have today. So it was not the way I recommend most people starting a business, but it got me here, and I'm incredibly grateful. So
I'm
I
grateful for the caveat.
yeah,
We're not saying go this route,
do
however.
not go that route. Yeah.
No, I love it. And I love hearing the story of when somebody becomes an entrepreneur, because everyone has a very different story, but yet everyone sort of still has the same vein of, I've just got to figure it out and I'm just
Mhm.
gonna figure it out. And I think that's when you know you're an entrepreneur, because you have that mindset, I'm just gonna figure it out.
Yep.
Because then you can and you will, rather than, oh no, I need something safe. I just get a job, grab any job, anything that's available, get it. That's a very different mindset than, no, I can do this. I'm going to figure it out. And you figured it out. And now you have, business with your husband. This is a
Right.
good man. You got a
He
good
is a good man,
man.
and he's, so I have the I have the entrepreneurial spirit. I always have. That's always what's driven me, is trying to kind of figure out what I could do on my own rather than making somebody else money. Why not make money for myself? He is the opposite. He is the ultimate company man. So he was a nurse. He had established himself in his career. We had about 3 years under his belt. And in 2020 or 2019, right before the pandemic, um, I knew that I was kind of stuck in growing our firm. And so it's, a week before New Year's Eve. And I said, so I think you should quit your job that you've just spent, the last 3 years going to school for. I think you should quit your job, and I think you should come work with me. Very good word choices. The with was really what won him over. And here's why, because, we won't have to miss out on any of the sports things, and we won't have to miss out on any of their school events. And, it just goes by way too fast with kids. And that got him. And so he left nursing 6 weeks before the pandemic just shut our whole world down.
Wow.
And it was so, I mean, what a fortuitous thing. I had no way of knowing. Nobody had any way of knowing. And we are excellent partners in raising a family, and we're excellent business partners. So I'm incredibly lucky.
Melissa, do you know what I really appreciate about the way you share your experiences is that everything you say happened for you, not to you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think it's such an important mindset for entrepreneurs to have. And it just is naturally flowing from you. I mean, if we'd talked to somebody else about, well, they left nursing just before the pandemic, they might have seen that as a downside because that was regular work. But of course, we know after the fact that it was the best thing that could possibly have happened for your
Absolutely.
husband so that he wasn't in that environment because nurses have suffered so much
and
since then.
it's really crazy, and they're really not appreciated for what they do and the responsibilities they have, and I could go on and on
Mm.
about that. But so he then went back to school again,
Good on him.
and and got his tax certification. And it really was kind of a crapshoot for us, because what if accounting has been like my passion my whole life? I am not a super people person. I like my numbers. Numbers always make sense. People don't always make sense. Um, so he went back to school again, and it was kind of like, okay, let's see if this works. If it doesn't, we'll figure out what's next for you. And he loved it. So it's a really good balance. He runs the tax side of our firm. I run the bookkeeping side of our firm, and they definitely complement each other. So
Congratulations. Congratulations. And I'm also hearing that there's some risk taking involved in being an entrepreneur, certainly in your story.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say, I know that there's a lot of startups that are listening. I think knowing your numbers is key. I think knowing when you're living within your means, just like we would on the personal side of things. Are you operating your business within your means, or are you kind of pushing it? If you're pushing it for a purpose, maybe that works for you. But if you're pushing it just because you're kind of throwing the spaghetti against the wall to see if what sticks, maybe you want to take a step back. That was one of the things that we saw was the huge difference, especially in the pandemic, between the businesses that survived and the businesses that were thriving, and those that just failed. The ones who had no clue what was going on with the financial situation of their company, they failed, and it didn't matter the industry. And we would have one restaurant client who they had no clue what was going on, and they eventually would go out of business. And then we would have another one that they were on top of it, and so they were able to kind of pivot and make decisions in a different direction, and they thrived. And our world moves so quickly that, especially for startups, you don't have that um, you don't have the ability to just say, okay, well, let's see if this works or not. You
Mm,
really need to know if it's working.
mm,
And that's why I'm I guess such a proponent for knowing your numbers.
you can see that passion. And
Yeah.
Melissa, what would the top three things be that a startup really must focus on when it comes to finances?
Hang on, hold that thought. I apologize for the interruption. I just wanted to take 15 seconds of your time to thank you for being a part of this growing community of resilient entrepreneurs. If you could do us just one massive favor and subscribe, you'll be notified of the next great episode of this podcast. And speaking of great episodes, let's get right back to it.
That I'll go from the top one to maybe the lesser ones. And the top one is, you should be checking your account balances on a daily basis. The thing that kills me, for my clients, for myself, is if you're paying more than you need to for anything. So if you're paying interest on credit cards that you don't need to be paying interest on, there's tons of credit card companies out there right now, even if you don't have great credit, that you can switch your balances to and not pay any interest, right? So think about what that could be saving you. Um, Making sure your account doesn't drop into a negative. Those fees add up quickly. There's one bank out there right now that they now charge $50 for every bounced check. Well, that can add up, especially if you're working on a little bit of a shoestring budget. So watch your expenses. That would be the first thing. And the best way to do that is by checking your account balances daily. So check your accounts daily. The second thing is set up a budget for yourself and your business. Even if it feels silly, even if you've been in business for 3 months, just figure out what that would look like if you multiplied what you've done in the last 3 months for, extend it out for a year. So multiply everything by, if you've got 3 months, multiply it times 4 and then divide it by 12, right? That's some crazy math. Somebody's going to listen to that and they're going to go, wait, what? And they'll back it up and they'll figure it out. So base it on your averages. It's not going to be perfect, but it will be a guide for you so that you kind of have it as a roadmap, and use that budget if you want to grow too. So if you're bringing in, let's say, $1,000 on average every month and you want to get to 5, do it in baby steps to see what that looks like for you. And then you have that target to hit every month. And then the third thing is going to kind of be a reflection back on that first, is watch your expenses. It's really easy when you've been living in, I'll call it entrepreneurial poverty for a while. And you've kind of done without or gone without for a long time. It's really easy to fall into the mindset of I deserve and I want, and to overspend a little bit. But know that if you stay on the track of not overspending or not spending your business out of business, that your business will reward you for it. So watch those expenses.
Great advice, especially when you are just starting out and trying to figure it all out. So, at what point should a small business owner, now say that they're a little bit out of the, solo entrepreneur, they've maybe hired a small team, at what point do they need an accountant? Day one,
Um,
couple
I
years in,
think
what do you think?
I think when you say accountant, there's two different types of accountants, right? There's the one
Yeah.
that works with you in your business throughout the year, that maybe reconciles books and does that type of thing. Maybe they come in, they help you pay bills and things like that. And then there's the person who files your taxes. So I think as soon as you start a business, you should be looking for a professional to help you with your taxes without a question. Even if you're a sole proprietor and you think it's, tiny and may not be worth it, a good tax accountant is well worth their weight in gold for what they will save you, just for the things that you don't know that you can deduct, right? As far as a bookkeeper or an in-house accountant or somebody like that, I think it depends. If it's a point of like you hate thinking about your numbers, then I think you hire somebody from day one. If it's something where you feel like, well, if somebody pointed me in the right direction, I could do it, then I think you wait, and you wait until you've, been in your business for a year. I really like working with clients who have done the work themselves for a year or maybe 2 years, and they know what it means and they know what it takes to do that work for their business. Um, and they've just become so busy that they no longer can do it and they want to outsource it. So, an educated client, in my opinion, is the best client.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd love to learn more about your thoughts on this. I hate the numbers. Let me outsource it from the beginning. This mindset, is it necessary, in your opinion, for a successful business owner to grow to at least like the numbers if they can't bring themselves to love them?
I think if you come to understand the numbers, you can learn to love the numbers.
And is it
I
necessary to come to understand them?
yes, I mean,
Because
yes. Well, because if you don't understand where your numbers are at, first of all, there's a huge risk that somebody could, I mean, worst case scenario, there's a huge risk that you could have somebody who's not the most ethical in your business, and they could, be stealing from you. That happens a lot more than we'd like to think about. They think they're doing something right. They hire a bookkeeper, and then all of a sudden they find out that, the numbers aren't quite adding up. But I think when you understand where your business is spending money, you can really make decisions on, is this worth it or is that worth it? Does it really make sense if we only bring in, $2,000 a month to be spending $4,000 on office space? And you kind of make those decisions. And there's a lot of There's a lot of decisions that we see small business owners make, especially startups make, that are in the should category. Well, I should do this and I should do that and I should do this. And they kind of should themselves before they're out of business. So they get this huge office space and they hire all of these people. And I would much rather see somebody who's a startup who starts up slowly, and maybe they do it as a side gig. And I know nobody gets excited about, working two jobs, but maybe you do it as a side gig for 3 months or 6 months until you know that you can leave that job and you can, launch your business successfully, rather than somebody who throws it all in. And we had a client last year that they closed their doors, but they were burning through like $200,000 a month.
Oof.
And it just was there. They were never going to make enough at a certain point to make up for that. And so they eventually closed. But I get much more excited about startups that are willing to, slowly ramp up.
Yeah, I think that's solid advice. I think the slow figuring it out, taking your time approach. I started, my whole entrepreneurial journey as a freelancer, as a side gig. I definitely did that while I was had another job, and then when I lost that other job, I had my freelance thing to rely on and start up a business right out of that. So I was starting with a few clients already, which made all the difference. And I was able to go,
Yep.
okay, do I go get another full-time job, or do I build this business that's already started? It was a much easier decision to go the entrepreneurial route, having some basis already there. But I'll tell you a funny one, because you mentioned like knowing the numbers, and you don't know what you don't know as an entrepreneur, especially. And
That's true.
you know what you know really well, but you don't know what you don't know. And one big thing I did not know for a shameful amount of years was how to file payroll tax correctly. I paid way too much payroll tax, which is a good thing. I mean, it's better than not paying enough. I
That's
paid
true.
too
That's true.
much because I wasn't calculating it correctly. And it wasn't until I went to a webinar with an accountant and she showed how to use a payroll tax calculator. I was like, oh, I didn't even know that existed. I just didn't even know. And now it's like, oh, I feel all professional. Like I know how to do my payroll.
There
It's
you
just for
go.
me, right? I'm not paying payroll for anybody else, just for me. But it's like just having that knowledge made all the difference. And I just didn't know it existed. So that happens all the time for so many people out there, paying too much, not paying enough, getting in trouble. The US, you have the IRS to worry about, very scary people,
Right.
you know? So, yeah, it's important to find these things out, which is why conversations like these are so valuable. What advice would you give people to go to find the information that they don't even know they don't know? Like where do you find information on how to get better? And are there apps or like QuickBooks I've mentioned, or other ones that you think really recommended for like those people who are like, listen, I've just got a side hustle, but I got to figure this stuff out. They're really in the startup stage and they're in the I need to do it myself stage. How do you help them get going?
So I think that's a great question, and I think that you're so right. We don't know what we don't know, and where do we look for knowledge? And the internet is an amazing resource. We have all of this information like right at the tips of our fingers. So you could even type in something, or you could use your, the chat GPT. The AI is kind of the new go-to. But, what do I need to know to start a business? What do I need to know to start a business in whatever city you're located in? Or give me a checklist. For checklists are really easy, they're really digestible. That would probably be the first place I would tell somebody to look, especially if it's there's a lot of information that comes at you when you're starting a business, right? So rather than getting overloaded by information, if you've got all of these articles and they were things that you're like, wow, I read 2 sentences, it's already over my head, and then you don't go back for more, start with asking for a checklist, or even saying something like, what are the 10 things I need to know to start a business in Brisbane, Australia, or whatever it is. And it's going to come up with a list of things that you can then dig a little bit deeper onto the things that you need to know more about. But I don't care if it's day one or day, you've been in business for 5 years. it's never too early to start building that tool chest of professionals that you trust to work with. So a tax accountant is going to be, I'm going to recommend at the top of your list. A financial advisor would be another one. Uh, Potentially a bookkeeper would be another one. Your insurance agent would be another one. But all of those people who are they're in your toolkit as a business owner, they are all people that you should be able to feel that you can comfortably reach out to and use as resources to ask those questions of, okay, what question am I not asking that I should be? Because, the two of you operate in the marketing space. And let me tell you, I have had some very interesting experiences in the marketing space as being somebody who's not a creative. It finally took me, after spending a ridiculous amount of money, to find somebody who was a professional in the marketing space for me to say, okay, so I'm going to feel silly here anyway, but what do I need to be asking? Because I don't seem to be getting the results I want, and I'm spending a whole bunch of money. What question do I need to ask? And most professionals are more than happy to share that information and that knowledge. So yeah, start developing your toolkit, your professional networking toolkit.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa.
I love that. I feel like
Yeah.
that's your board of directors. Like when you were
Yeah,
saying it, like, that's
they
a board
are.
of directors. I want a board of directors. Like, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And that question is key, isn't it? What am I asking that I don't know? And what should I ask that I
Yeah,
don't know to ask?
yeah,
What a brilliant question. I would
yeah.
encourage every listener to think, where could you ask that question in your life right now?
And I don't think, I mean, if I had somebody call and ask, I don't know, some kind of a bookkeeping question or ask us that, I don't think that we would judge them. I don't think most professionals would. So, we're all willing to share our knowledge, and yeah, why not tap into that? But it is a daunting thing to start a business. So
It is, because there's so many moving pieces, as we've said. And I think, you talk about, no professional would judge you. I think, in fact, it would probably be the reverse. They'd admire you for knowing that there was stuff you didn't know. Do you know, like if someone called me with that question, I'd be like, I love that you have the awareness that there's stuff you don't know, and you're just looking for a starting base. Like, what a beautiful way to start a relationship. And ultimately, it's that relationship that leads to business,
yep.
right? So I would love a cold call like that from anybody that says, hey, what do I need to know right now? And it's going to be a free conversation. It could be several free conversations, but it's building a relationship where they can trust me and I can get to know what they're doing. And it's a really great question. I love that question.
Yeah, it's a great way it's a great way to start a network for your business as well too. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because you can help advise people on what you are an expert in. Like, say the
right.
three of us just sat down to dinner, we could have some great conversations. You'd be asking us marketing stuff, we'll be asking you finance stuff, and it'd be all supporting each other, helping our own businesses grow. And that's, I think, what it really is about. I love that. And
Mm.
also, you share a lot of knowledge as well. You have a podcast. You and your husband both host a
We
podcast?
do. We do. That was something that was recommended by like I would say two marketing firms ago that we started. And it really, at first we kind of thought, well, this will be so scary for us to do. It's been a blast, and it really has turned into kind of a fun way for us to get answers to the questions that we get asked over and over again out there. And we're able to repurpose the podcast episodes into so many different things. So,
You have been given great marketing advice there.
Thank
And
you.
also, you have a book, Melissa, the
I
4
do, I
hour.
do. The four
Yeah.
hour bookkeeper. And so the 4 hour bookkeeper, let's see if I can show a copy of it. It never, yeah, it's real.
Wonderful.
It's a real actual book. It's not an ebook. Well, I mean, it can be an ebook, but it started with the thought of not all startups need to hire a bookkeeper. Not all startups can afford to hire a bookkeeper, but if you were to take, 100 small business owners, brand new business owners, and kind of put them in a room together and say, who gets excited about looking at their business finances, nobody would raise their hand. But if you were to say, okay, so if I can show you exactly what you need to do in a reasonable amount of time, and you knew that the information you were getting was accurate and correct, and you could have the pride in doing it yourself, how many people could get excited about it? And you're not going to get everybody, but the majority of people would raise their hands. And when I started to ask that question of, okay, so I don't even want to take your money because what your books look like right now is so simple and you could do it yourself. Let me write kind of a tip sheet. And so it started with a tip sheet, and then the tip sheet grew and grew and grew, and then it turned into 250 pages. And I thought, well, I should probably turn this into something. So what I would love to do is I would love to send a free copy to any of your listeners that are interested. So all they need to
Wow.
do is go to our website. They can fill out the contact form, just put in free book. I think they'll also end up getting a QuickBooks online new users guide. That's our pop-up right now, which is pretty handy. I wrote that over Christmas break when I was having some family time and just needed some quiet time. They all leave me alone when I'm in front of my computer, so
Nice.
yeah. But no, I would love to send a free copy to any of your listeners that are interested.
That's incredibly generous. Thank you so much. And I'm really trust and hope that people will take you up on that. And I imagine that's specifically useful for people living and working and running businesses in the US. Yep. US
You know,
specific, or is it
so
more
it's
general?
it's it's totally general. So really the
Fantastic.
idea comes down to, I want you to make a commitment once a week to have an appointment with yourself for an hour to deal with the finances of your business. Set a timer. When the timer goes off, you get to get up and walk away. Now, if you're inclined, you're in it and you're loving what you're doing, you want to spend a little bit more time going through paperwork, you can. But just breaking it up into those small 1 hour pieces and people knowing what to do, it works anywhere. It's not US specific at all.
I love that.
That's really
Fantastic. I'll be ordering a copy.
There you
Thank
go.
you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
really solid too. Just I love that. Make a commitment to 1 hour a week. It seems very doable. It seems
Right.
very simple. Commit to it. Put it in the calendar. Make it a date with yourself, or in our case, maybe me and Vicky have to make a date together. And yeah, go through the numbers. I think it's really important and such valuable advice. Thank you. What else is really important that we haven't talked about yet that you think people need to know?
I think numbers can be your friend. And I think when you embrace that philosophy that numbers are not your enemy, um, it is a different mindset. If we were to, not to get too far out there, but if we all kind of believe that there's abundance out there, we really attract abundance towards us. And that's been kind of my motto this year. We've just had so many different opportunities fall in our laps here, and I think there's really a ton of opportunity out there for everybody. So it really starts with knowing your numbers and owning your numbers, and then seeing where your business can grow from there.
You've just opened up a Pandora's box and a conversation that I love to dive into. Money mindset, abundance, and scarcity, and this whole conversation about potential recession looming, et cetera, et cetera. I hear our clients sometimes say, and I hear people in other industries say, well, yeah, I would charge more, but people just can't afford it these days. And please, let's correct that myth right here and now. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that abundance is out there and it's everywhere. And as soon as you are willing to kind of flip that switch on for yourself, it draws abundance towards you. And it's scary. I mean, it's scary when you're operating from a place of, we used to charge an hourly rate, let's say of $35 an hour. And there were coaches that were telling me, I needed to charge more. And I was really scared, because what about those people who, they were saying that they could barely afford that $35 an hour? What happens to them? And, the coach kind of just encouraged me to just try it and see what happened and what happens. And so we went up to, I think $50 an hour. And, it was very interesting, because those people, we didn't lose any clients, and they were just as willing to pay $50 an hour. And, when we bumped prices again, they were just as willing. And, at some point you do have clients that kind of fall off. But what you find is you feel better when you're charging what you're worth. And I believe your clients respect you more and they respect your time more when you're charging what you're worth. So, yeah. No,
I love the
yeah,
mm,
I definitely believe in the power of having an abundant mentality for sure.
yeah, so it's so true. And it really, you can see it. Like that example was a prime example of how you can see it in real life. This isn't woo woo talking about manifestation, it's real life business advice. We must charge what we're worth. And on top of that, we must feel and believe the value of ourselves because our client will only see as much value in us as we see in ourselves. And I think this is where entrepreneurs get stuck a lot because they say they're worth something, yet when they're selling that product or service, that belief isn't coming through. It's all coming from the head. Oh, yeah, I'm worth 150, I'm worth 350, I'm worth 500 an hour, whatever the number is. Yet, unless it's really something that they believe inside themselves and they truly value themselves to that regard, then a client will never see the value until they see it themselves.
Correct. Correct. And so for us, what that looked like, because I'm a little bit of a pushover when it comes to clients and when it comes to pricing, and I tend to want to like give away the farm. And then all of a sudden it's going, okay, I've just worked 82 hours this week. I miss my family. I need to hire some people, but I obviously need to charge more if I'm doing that. So, um, what I found, and this sounds so funny, the trick to that was having a price list and actually bringing in a new employee who is the person that goes over prices with people. So my office manager is who does all of our contracts. Somebody calls in, they have an appointment with her. I mean, it makes sense. She's who answers the phone. She just runs down pricing and would you like to get started today? And so for me, that would be such an awkward and uncomfortable feeling. I've gotten past it now, but initially it would have been such an awkward and uncomfortable feeling that to hire somebody to do that, I mean, within the first month, she was paying for herself 4 times over. So,
Yeah. What a
Mm.
great way that you found a way to solve that problem for yourself in the way that worked for you.
yep,
And that's fantastic instead of just staying stuck and keep doing the same thing and getting the same results. You did something different and you got a fantastic result.
absolutely. And I think we all have different weird things that are where we get stuck. And so find people that kind of push you out of your comfort zones. And, don't, life's too short to get stuck on silly stuff.
Isn't that true? And you mentioned that you had used a coach. So did you want to share any more about like how coaching has impacted your business?
I love having somebody. I don't currently have a coach now, but since I started the company, have loved having a coach. And here's why. Being an entrepreneur is lonely. You can't necessarily talk to your spouse about your business unless they're involved in the business with you. You definitely can't talk to your employees about your business. And unless your friends are in the same boat as you are, it kind of becomes it's a difficult conversation to have. It's like talking to somebody about your kids who doesn't have kids, right? They don't quite get it. And I've always found that having a coach is helpful, just to have somebody to push me and to help me stay unstuck, because we all, of course, can revert back to bad habits. Um, I have a huge phobia of the phone. And so that was something that, as a small business owner, you actually have to talk on the phone to people. And I would avoid the phone at all costs. And so that was probably one of the big things early on that I had a coach work with me on. And, she came up with some very creative, she made it fun. And so that made it, that made it fun for me. And I got past it. Now I'm past it, and it's fine. But right, exactly. And it feels good to know I'm past it. But we all have weird stuff. Um, there are a lot of women that I talk to that have all kinds of thoughts and issues about money, and that's a pretty powerful it's a pretty powerful topic, women in money. A lot of us have been told maybe we're not good with money, or maybe we don't need to worry about money, or we're not smart enough. And so if you can find a coach to maybe help you identify where you might get stuck and to help you work past it, that's a beautiful thing. So, and I've had some really bad coaches too, but you just kind of, you realize this is not quite a good fit. And the funniest story was, I had one woman that, and she was a lovely person. But every time we would meet, I would have accomplished all the things that we had talked about the previous meeting. And I'm so surprised you got all of those things done. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is not going to work.
Not a
I'm
fit.
doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You shouldn't be surprised. So
It's important to I think understand that fully, like the value of community when you're an entrepreneur and getting the right people around you and networking. We talk about these topics so much on this podcast because I think it can't be overstated how important it is, because just like you said, your friends might not understand, your family might not understand, your spouse may not understand, your kids don't, they're not paying attention. Who do you talk to?
I really don't think our kids think that my husband and I work at all. I don't know where they think money comes from, but no.
Exactly. And you know what? It's exactly. But so who do you talk to? You got to find the right people to talk to. So you need that community. You need something. You need a coach. You need a mentor. You need to find these people. You need to surround yourself. So if you're a solo entrepreneur out there, please hear this. There are so many great entrepreneur communities. There are so many great coaches and mentors and people out there. And like you said, and I truly believe this, entrepreneurs in like every field want to like tell you everything they know. Like if you come and say, I'm a new entrepreneur and I know nothing about marketing, I want to tell you everything. Let me
Yep.
give you the whole farm. Like you said, I am the first, just like I'll give it all away because I'm just excited to share, what I do, what I love. And you do what you love, and that's fantastic. Now tell me about what you love. And so don't be afraid to approach and ask and call and email and hit us up. Like we're here. We love the conversation. Leave a comment down. We see all of our comments, so leave a comment. We'll talk. But yeah, it's important for people to get that message, I think, as well. So yeah, and thank you for having a podcast so that you can help people understand the crazy world of finance and tax, because that's a big one. And the fact that you get to do that with your husband, your partner, your business partner, I think that's pretty special and pretty
Yeah,
unique.
it
So
is. It
congrats.
is. I am very lucky. So we had all the shoulds in our business, just like other businesses do, and we decided we needed an office space, and all had a huge staff. And then when the pandemic hit, well, our team didn't want to come into work because everybody was terrified to leave their house. So we're paying, $5,000 a month for an office space. And we actually decided when our lease was up to move our offices home. And we thought, okay, this will be interesting because we're going to be around each other a lot. But we have a big enough house that we each have an office, and we've got 2 extra bedrooms. So we each have an office in, one of the extra bedrooms. And um, it's awesome. I mean, it really is, like, it's awesome. Yeah. So
I love that so much. And it's interesting how we make lemonade out of lemons, right? I mean, a global crisis has had so many upsides for so many people who've been able to find the upside and lean into the upside. And that's by no way diminishing those people who, would have been through trauma. And it was a very difficult time for a lot of people. And we've had people like yourselves who've been able to find that silver lining. And I love that for you. So, as we were talking about doing what you love and loving what you do, what do you love most, Melissa, about numbers, finance, bookkeeping?
it's a puzzle, right? So I get a new client's file, and it feels like that fresh out of the box jigsaw puzzle. Now, I'm not talking about like 1,000 piece. I mean, it can be 150-piece jigsaw puzzle, very obvious with big pictures on it, but it's still a puzzle that gets to be put together. And I feel like it's I don't know, that my kids and husband like love superhero movies. So it's like it's my spidey sense where I can see this chaos and I can turn it into order that then makes sense to my clients. And that is, I mean, it's just incredibly gratifying. So,
Well, thank you for being that person.
oh, sure.
Because as creative minded entrepreneurs, us, we are not so excited about the numbers and sometimes see them as just a crazy, chaotic pile of numbers. And people like you who help make that so much clearer, and help us to understand what we don't know is so important. So thank you for being that person. Thank you for
Oh, you're
having that
welcome.
brain. Thank you for having that passion. And thank you for being with us today and sharing all your great information. We'll do some nice links in the show notes for the podcast, for your book, and for your website, so people can get their copy of the book, which is super
Perfect.
wonderful. Thank you for that. And yeah, it's been an amazing conversation. I appreciate your time so much, and it's lovely to meet you. And I hope we can connect again soon.